For the 213th time in NFL history, and just the third time in playoff history, the Packers and Bears square off on Saturday night. Who will win the ultimate rubber match in the NFL's most played series, and how? Stacey Dales joins us from Chicago tonight to set the scene on a showdown at Soldier Field. On Monday night, the Steelers are back on the field for the first time since Calvin Austin III's touchdown, and some kicking volleys sent Pittsburgh to the playoffs. Austin joins us tonight for a really fun conversation discussing a Wildcard clash with the Texans. The stars are all out on Wildcard weekend. Matthew Stafford, Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, Adam Rank. Four of those guys will be slinging the rock over the next 3 days. One will be slinging some predictions tonight and tell you who's coming out on top. Welcome inside with the Insiders, presented by Progressive Insurance, alongside Mike Garafolo. I am Tom Pelissero, pleased to join you right now on the eve of Wild Card Weekend, 30 days out from Super Bowl 60. We got a ton of news to get to in the show as well. We got to dig right into it because we got 6 games over the next 3 days. That includes a triple header on Sunday, that Texans-Steelers game on Monday night. All kicks off on Saturday with Rams and Panthers, followed by the primetime showdown, my favorite game of the weekend, Packers and Bears. First home game for the Bears in the playoffs since the infamous double doink game. That was back 7 years ago. So long ago that I forgot Stacey Dales was at that game with me when all that happened for the Bears against the Eagles. She is with us right now. Stacey, you live in the Chicago area. You know what that city is feeling. You've also covered the Packers for a very long time, too. Take me through the scene here. Set it for me, please, on exactly the magnitude of this for these teams in that city.
Oh, my goodness. Hello, gentlemen. This is huge. I just set my alarm for 5 o'clock. I will be at Soldier Field all day. Game day morning starts at 11 Central. Don't miss it. We'll see you guys there as well. It is the third playoff game between these two franchises. I mean, these guys go back to 1921. That's how long they've been playing. You said it at the top of the show. This will be meeting 213, but just 3 playoff games, guys. So this tells you just how rare it is that the Bears and the Packers are good at the same time. Jordan Love talked this week, and as he returns, having missed the past 3 weeks, basically because of that concussion from the Chicago Bears, he said this week it's going to be at an all-time high because we split the regular season 1-1, obviously, in weeks 14, week 16. So they've played very recently. They know each other as well as anybody in the National Football League. And then I talked to Kevin Byard. And Kevin Byard, who leads the NFL with those 7 interceptions, and he said he remembers the energy surrounding the Week 16 game at Chicago, at Soldier Field. And he said the entire warm-up, we could hear all the way to the concourse our fans saying, "Green Bay sucks. Green Bay sucks." And he gave me the best quote of the week, you guys. He said, in terms of playing with controlled aggression, you play to the edge, you just don't jump off the cliff. That's how much emotion is going into this thing for both of these teams. And you're going to have different menus. I know the Levy Restaurant Group, who's the group that kind of manages the food at Soldier Field, one of the things they're doing, I think I said it right, Levy, is they're going to be grating cheddar cheese over the warm chili they serve at some of their venues. And I'm curious to know if it's Wisconsin cheddar, you guys. We'll see, but it's going to be awesome.
Stacey, thank you very much. A lot more from you on this game a little bit later on in the show. We got 5 other good ones this weekend, and there's all kinds of man and beast making their predictions. We've got a turtle here picking the Rams. No, going for the Panthers. How about that? How about some otters? We're turning them loose. I don't know where these things happen, who decides to come up with them. Gotta admit, though, it's pretty fun. Let's bring in our own animal, Adam Rank, who's got some predictions as well. Rank, we know you're a big Bears fan. We'll get to that game in a little bit. But let's start out. First game of the weekend, Rams-Panthers. Who you got?
You know what? This is an interesting one because the Rams and the Panthers played already this season, and some feel like this is going to be a runaway, but I'm going to go with the Rams in this one. I think one of the things about the Panthers is they have a way of slowing games down. And one of the reasons why they are able to be successful early on, or in their previous matchup against the Rams, is like when they create a turnover, they find a way to bleed the clock for like 8 minutes, and it frustrates teams. A lot of times when you create a turnover, perhaps you can go out there and get a 3 and out. But they did a great job of not only making Matthew Stafford turn the ball over, but they bled out the clock. But I think this time the Rams ready for it. They've got too much offensive firepower. So for me, I'm going to take the Rams to win this one 27-15.
We'll skip that Bears game. We said we'll come back to that with you later in the program. Now to Bills-Jaguars, which to me is the hardest game of the weekend to pick, because I could see both of these teams winning, and I could see both of these teams winning a couple of games here as we go through the postseason. So curious to see where you land on Bills-Jaguars.
Yeah, it's really interesting when people are thinking about Trevor Lawrence this week and talking about him. They act like Trevor Lawrence has never won a playoff game. I know it feels like a long time ago when the Jags went out there and had that massive rally against the Chargers in a playoff game a couple of years ago. But there is some experience there with Trevor Lawrence, and I think what Liam Cohen has been able to do with this team this season, turn them around, get them into the playoffs. I feel like he is just flying under the radar. As we were talking about Coach of the Year candidates, it doesn't seem like Liam Cohen is getting the rub. But the one thing that I really love what the Jags did this season is they went out there and got Jacoby Myers at the trade deadline to really fortify their team, where the Bills, who could have used a player like Jacoby Myers, refused to do such, want to go out there and win it with Keon Coleman and players like that. So for me, I really believe that Jacksonville is going to win this one. I think it's going to be a tight one, but I have the Jags winning this one 28-24.
Another Sunday game, 49ers at Eagles, a San Francisco team ranked that has seemed to exceed every expectation despite all the injuries, and an Eagles team that has seemed, at least if you listen to fans in the media, fallen below expectations, yet here they are going at it in the postseason. Who do you got?
You know, I feel like I might be going out on a limb this one, but I'm going to take the 49ers to win this one 24-22. It's crazy to me. Well, what's interesting to me is after the 49ers beat the Bears a couple of weeks ago, people started saying, listen, the 49ers might not leave the state of California. They could play all their playoff games at home, including the Super Bowl, which is at Santa Clara. And then when they lose to Seattle, everybody's like, they suck. They're not good anymore. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is still a really good football team. And they're going up against an Eagles team that, to me, has never really put it together this season. I think everybody's waiting. They kind of just are gracing the Philadelphia Eagles, kind of overlooking some of the things they've not been able to do so far this season. But I'm not going to overlook it. I'm going to take the 49ers in this one.
All right, let's go to the Chargers-Patriots, because to me this one comes down to one matchup. The Patriots defensive line, I mean, it'll come down to a lot of matchups, but in my mind, the big one is the Patriots defensive front, really good defensive front, against a Chargers offensive line that has had Justin Herbert scrambling, dodging, moving on every single snap, it seems.
Yeah, it's true. I really like the Patriots in this one. I'm going to take the Patriots to win this one, and I'm going to take them to win. I got to read the 21-20. I'm sorry. Yeah, I can't read my own writing. Here's the thing. The New England is one of those teams that, I would say coming in a normal world, I would say they would have a lot of trouble because they've won some games that against some teams that did not make the playoffs. There's a lot of inexperience. However, on the other side of the ball, the Chargers have missed both tackles this season, and where they're vulnerable defensively is on the cornerback position. And to me, the things that the Chargers don't do well is what Drake May does well. And I think that this is a perfect matchup, not only for Drake May, but Mike Vrabel, who's had some success in the playoffs. So I'm going to go with the Patriots in this one because of that.
All right, how about Monday night? We got Steelers and Texans. You talk about success in the playoffs. It's been a while since Mike Tomlin has had that in Pittsburgh. DeMeco Ryans' Houston team won a playoff game 2 consecutive years. Who do you got?
It's interesting because the emotion of watching the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers rally on Sunday night, I'm like, could the Steelers do it? But I'm going to take the Texans in this one, and I'm going to take the Texans by the score of 24-12. I don't think this is going to be close. I think that this Texans defense is going to overwhelm the Steelers. They just don't have answers offensively. And even with the return of DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers wasn't featuring him earlier this year anyway. So I think that the Texans are probably one of the most I don't know if undervalued is the right way to put this, but overlooked teams in this playoff because they have a defense that travels. And that's the one thing that you hear. Can the defense play well? Absolutely. I think they shut down Aaron Rodgers, and this could be it for Mike Tomlin. I don't know. We could see. Listen, we have 8 coaching openings right now. Could there be more at the end of the weekend? Could there be 2 more with 2 of these teams? That's yet to be seen.
Rank, thank you very much. Your Packers-Bears pick coming up in just a little bit. For now, we got some more news around the NFL, including involving a team that was there right at the end of the NFC playoffs a year ago. The Washington Commanders making wholesale changes to Dan Quinn's coaching staff, and a fascinating hire within the past hour. The team making it official via our guy Rap Sheet that David Blau, 30-year-old former quarterback in the NFL, going to be the new offensive coordinator. Meanwhile, in Miami, the Dolphins have a new general manager. It is John Eric Sullivan, as we reported this morning. Sullivan, the former Packers vice president of player personnel, highly respected within the league, has been with Green Bay for over 20 years. There's some obvious connections potentially with some former and current Packers assistants. Mike McCarthy, former Packers head coach, Jeff Hafley and Adam Stenavich, current coordinators. Even Anthony Campanile, Mike, who was the former linebackers coach for the Packers, now doing a great job as defensive coordinator with the Jaguars. Take me through your perspective on this hire and what it means as the Dolphins make a wholesale reset heading into 2026.
You're talking about the word reset, and you're looking at this saying where they went out and hired the guy that they thought in their minds was the best general manager candidate, and not for any other reason. And it might have to be a hard reset in a lot of ways, because you look at the Dolphins situation, their cap situation, their quarterback situation. There is a lot of work for a general manager to do down there in Miami. And I did hear the names that you mentioned connected to John Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator, being one that I think has a really strong chance at that job now at this point. So now, of all those names that you mentioned, we don't hear John Harbaugh, which we had tied him to the Dolphins the last couple of days. Certainly when Chad Alexander, who had worked with both Harbaughs, all of a sudden was inserted late into this general manager search, and we said, oh, now they're cooking this one up for Harbaugh. Well, now, if you're the Giants, you got to be high-fiving when this John Eric Sullivan news hits today, because right now, you look at what the Giants have, you look at what the Dolphins have, there's nobody in the general manager seat that he's worked with before, so that's out the window. I talked about their salary cap situation. I talked about their quarterback situation, their entire roster, whereas the Giants got themselves a young quarterback, a good young nucleus that seems to be coming together here on both sides of the ball, talent across the roster. At this point, I don't know what Miami offers that the Giants don't, other than weather. And if you're a head coach in the NFL, you're inside the facility for like 16 hours a day anyway, so who cares about that part of things? So if you're the Giants, you got to be feeling good about what you can present to John Harbaugh as we get into next week, and he starts the interview process, which, I don't know, maybe a short one for him.
John Harbaugh had tremendous alignment over those 18 years with Ozzie Newsome and then Eric DeCosta in terms of building the program. My understanding has been Harbaugh ideally would like to have his preferred GM candidate with him. Well, there now is only one GM job left open in the NFL. It is in Atlanta. You cannot overlook the Falcons as a potential landing spot for John Harbaugh as well. Lots to come on this Friday night happy hour edition of the Insiders, including another look at that Packers-Bears game on Saturday night. Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, who's got the edge? Stacey Dale's back, as well as Adam Rank with his pick for that game a little bit later on in the show. But first, we will fast forward to Monday night with a guy who starred last Sunday night, Calvin Austin III, still haunting Chidobe Awuzie's dreams with that little stutter step right there. He's not putting the moves on us, but he is going to join us right after this on the Insiders, presented by Progressive Insurance.
The Insiders is presented by Progressive. Get coverage you can count on with home and auto at Progressive.com.
New today, some injury updates ahead of Sunday's playoff games. 49ers left tackle Trent Williams, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, both listed as questionable to face the Eagles. Williams practiced on a limited basis the past couple of days. Pearsall did not practice at all this week. We'll see if those two can go. But tight end George Kittle, Mike, no injury designation. He looks good to go.
Speaking of another future Hall of Fame tackle, the Eagles' Lane Johnson, questionable versus the 49ers, limited in practice all week. We've had a couple of false starts with Johnson, which is not a great analogy to make for an offensive lineman. I'm sorry, Lane, but it was like, Lane Johnson back, no. Lane Johnson back, no. Lane Johnson back, no. We thought this week, we'll see. I've got that game. I'll let you know. Jalen Carter and Dallas Goedert, good to go, Tom.
Chargers running back Omarion Hampton's been out with a knee injury, listed as questionable for Sunday night's game against the Patriots. But Hampton talked to reporters in the locker room today. He said he plans to play, and he is excited to roll against the Patriots. Mike.
The NFL's oldest rivalry, Packers and Bears.
Those two cities don't like each other.
He said, Vince, I just want you to know you better have your team ready because we're going to kick your ass.
Winning isn't everything, but it's the only thing. Either you're first or you're last.
We're going to be here all day, baby. I like this kind of party.
Here's the water again. Right to the outside of the 40. To the 45 of 50.
Hand off to Perry. Questions the right side. Favre keeps it over the middle of the end zone.
You could have a complete losing season, but if you beat the Bears, that was your season.
We're going to separate the men from the boys. We're going to find out who really wants to play this game and who does not.
Those guys want to play it. These guys want to play it. We all want to see them play it. Round 3 of this season, round 3 in the postseason ever, which is still mind-boggling. Over 200 years combined for these franchises. How will they have not played more than 3 times in the postseason? Stacey Dales has the answer to that and all the questions. Stace, let's break down this game that you will be covering. Looks like pretty good weather for January in Chicago tomorrow night, so enjoy that balminess, we'll call it. It's okay. Let's start with the Bears' game plan and what you expect from them in this game.
I expect the Chicago Bears to run the football and run the heck out of the football as much as possible because the Green Bay Packers, Mike, as you know, have given up substantial rush yardage per game over the last 3 games without Micah Parsons. I mean, he departed back in Week 15, but in these last 3 games, an average of 194 rush yards. And I know the 303 that they gave up to the Baltimore Ravens kind of skews the number a little bit, so we'll say that. But Jeff Hafley, defensive coordinator, made it very evident this week when he spoke that this is paramount for their defense. I was on the phone with Quay Walker, linebacker for the Packers this week. And the first priority, not even the quarterback, and certainly they have respect for Caleb Williams, but is this run game with Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. Swifty out in the open field. Monangai gives you that power look. And he told me that's how they get that play action going, the boot game going. And he said that run game is special. They're very physical up front. Jeff Hafley, though, had a great quote, Mike. And he said, I need my guys to put a shoulder pad through a guy's sternum on Saturday night. So they're ramping it up in terms of physicality, and we'll see what they can get done against the Bears ground game on Saturday evening.
That was a great quote from Jeff Hafley. The only thing that would be better at this point is, by the way, I'm the next head coach of the Dolphins. That would be cool. On the other side of the ball, Stace, we got the game plan on the offense for the Bears. How about the game plan for the defense up against Jordan Love in this game?
Yeah, get after him, pressure him. I mean, I was in the locker room this week at Hallis Hall, and I talked to Montez Sweat. He smiled at me. Big old grin. We know this team as well as anybody in the NFL. They obviously got to him. It was Austin Booker 2.5 games ago that left Jordan Love with a concussion. And Love said, my head was throbbing. He had headaches after that, and obviously he hasn't played since. Is there going to be rust? Jordan said this week, nope, zero rust, zero concern about any rust for me. And he also said, you're going to see, though, the intensity of this playoff game ramp up. In terms of what the Bears are focused on defensively, speaking to Kevin Byard, you're talking about a team in Green Bay who is roughly 49% conversion rate on third down. So third down is critical for the Bears, which hasn't been necessarily great of late, but they have been pretty good in the red zone. And that's the next thing Byard told me. He said, we have to be great in the red zone, force field goals if they do get down there, because he said Green Bay is a team that they sustain drives and they will march down the field on any team in the National Football League. And last but not least, Mike, get takeaways. You're the Bears. You've 33 of them this season. You convert those to points, and you have a really good shot at victory on Saturday night. But we'll see. It's going to be really particularly, probably, I would say, maybe the best game of the weekend. I don't know, Mike, if you agree, but certainly the excitement is there for both teams.
I'll call it the best game of the weekend, possibly, definitely the best game of the weekend in the NFC. That Bills-Jaguars game is going to be awesome, too. Stacey, you know what? I don't have to rank them. They can be even. You talked about the Bears' turnovers. Nashawn Wright does a great job. Kevin Byard's done a great job this year. All-pro voting, all-pro teams going to be announced on Saturday. Could see them ahead of this game, 8 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video. Stacey Dales, thank you very much. Tom.
Thank you.
213th meeting between the Packers and Bears. Third time in the playoffs. Last time Chicago won, it was 1941 divisional round. These are the highlights right here. Chicago went on to win the NFL championship game. In this one, Hall of Famer George One-Play McAfee had the first 100-yard rushing game. He had 119, first ever in the divisional round. The Bears were also penalized 12 times for 128 yards, both records at the time. Not exactly, it appears, a clinic on passing offense, although the four guys all moving in the backfield is something I'd like to see. Somewhere Adam Rank will be watching that and other tapes late night tonight to prepare for this game. Probably not 2010, which was the Jay Cutler came out of the game and no one knew if he was hurt or what was going on. Well, let all that go, Rank. You've made picks in 5 other games. You are, in fact, a Bears fan, which explains the attire. Can you just please, cutting a wrestling promo or whatever you need to do here to tell me who's going to win this one?
How dare you come out here and question my objectivity when it comes to breaking down these football games, because if there's anything I stand on, it's objectivity. And I think for the Bears, it's very important that they come out this week with a little bit more of a controlled aggression. Last time they came out like the guys that you see who find the 2-for-1 old style tent at the sandwich fair, and they were a little too jacked up. We can't do that right now, but you got to go out there and play Bears football. We can't sit here and rely on Caleb Williams to go out there and bail us out each and every time. Now, Stacey Dales, who is just a terrific reporter, hit the nail right on the head. The Bears got to run the football. That's the big thing. If the Bears can get that ground game going and sustain some drives early on, I think that they can eventually overwhelm this Packers team, who I have the utmost respect for. But people keep looking at the history. I'm looking at the future. The Bears win this game 30-20.
Wow.
Rank,
I don't know.
Great stuff.
Hold on. Are we playing this straight, or are we, like, is it shtick? I can't tell if it's somewhere in between. I'll tell you what. Let me test the waters here. Rank, suppose the Packers do win the game. Like, what's the Packers' path to victory in this game?
The Packers, they got to run the football as well. It's the thing. The whole reason why they went out there and got Josh Jacobs from the Las Vegas Raiders was to win these games deep in January when it's cold and it's possibly snowing. You got to go out there and run the rock. And they got away from it last time, which is probably the reason why they lost that game. So if Green Bay is going to be successful, which I don't anticipate them doing so, they got to run the rock with Josh Jacobs.
I like that the accent just became stronger and stronger throughout the course of that answer right there. Rank, when you get your picture with George McCaskey, just make sure there's no Packers fans around outside Soldier Field there so George doesn't have to bust any skulls. Thank you very much. Much more to come on this Friday night happy hour edition of The Insiders. It is the eve of playoff football. We've also got the Steelers going against the Texans on Monday night. We'll break it down next.
It is time for Good Coverage presented by Progressive Insurance. It's a recurring segment on this program, and I feel like it's like the 10th time we've done it with the Texans. The Texans secondary has been locking down receivers all year. That's why. Kalen Bullock, Jalen Petre, Derek Stingley Jr. all rank in the top 5 in opponent passer rating in the NFL with a minimum of 40 targets. That is according to the Next Gen Stats. Like I said, all pro teams getting announced on Saturday. I expect to hear a few Texans names in there and expect to see them on the field trying to play some good defense against Pittsburgh. You like defense? This is a team that plays it, an organization on the other side that loves it. This game on ESPN and ABC, and Mike Tomlin on that Texans defense.
Will Anderson and Hunter are simply the most dynamic edge rush tandem in the National Football League in 2025. They got 27 sacks between them. I think it's 12 for Anderson, 15 for Hunter. They're a formidable group. You could talk about the things that you need to do schematically to minimize them and all of that. It's nothing that they haven't seen. We better stay out of a bunch of one-dimensional passing circumstances, because if we're in those circumstances, we're going to be in trouble. And that's just the reality of it. certainly they've been top tier and elite in just about all areas all year with that group. That group sets the pace for them. They play with great energy and emotion. They play well as a collective. They have an appetite for rising up in moments. It just seems like every week you're seeing game-changing and game-deciding plays from their defense in terms of closing close ball games out.
Jane Slater in here. You heard what Mike Tomlin had to say about that defense. I know you've talked to some folks ahead of covering this game for us. What is Aaron Rodgers, what's the Steelers team saying about facing this defense?
Well, you heard Mike Tomlin give you the full scouting report. I mean, this is a Texans defense that you have to respect. I mean, he said it there, 47 sacks as a team, and it's Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter accounting for 27 of those. They embody the swarm mentality. If you're not familiar with what swarm is, it's DeMeco Ryans' mantra: special work ethic, relentless mindset. This week, Jalen Petrie says the reason everyone buys in is because of the continuity on that side of the ball, from the coaches to the players who've been here since DeMeco came on board. He says, more importantly, they each know they are 1/11th of this thing. Every small thing they do accounts for the greater good of the defense. Now, as I spoke to about Rodgers' ability to spread the ball around, remember he saw 9 different guys last week catching passes. He says communications before the snap will be key, being where you are supposed to be. Now, he will likely draw Pat Vermouth, and with him, he knows he's going to use his strength and big frame to try and make those big plays. You got to try and stop him. But I love the fact that these two teams are playing on Monday night.
All right, Jane, we saw a little bit of magic from Aaron Rodgers late in the game. Maybe he's got a little bit left. You don't need him to score 40 points with the Steelers. You just need some key plays and key moments. So what are the Texans saying about facing him in this game?
Yeah, this isn't a 40-plus point type of team. I mean, they're averaging more about, I think it's 23 points per game. But here's what you need to know about Aaron Rodgers. The Houston defense, as we talked about, #1 ranked defense. The one area they do, like if they're middle of the pack on, if there's one knock on them, it's against the deep passes. And Aaron Rodgers can throw the deep ball, although he hasn't done it a lot this year. Now, we did see it in Week 14 against the Ravens. He had 3 passes of 20-plus yards, helping Metcalf come up with 121 passing yards on those plays alone. Remember DK Metcalf, he's been out 2 weeks. He was so excited that they'd gotten to the AFC North. He says that he attempted to drive up to the stadium, but traffic proved difficult there. But talking to Texan safety Jalen Petrie this week, I asked him, what stands out the most about the play of Aaron Rodgers? And he told me, quote, the way he releases the ball, it's so fast. His cadence is second to none, and he's in complete control of the offense. He told me the last time that he played Aaron Rodgers, it was Week 9. Of course, Rodgers was with the Jets in that one, and they ended up blitzing him on about over half of that game. How did he do against that? Well, he only had 3 of those 7 completions, but of those 3, he did get sacked, but all 3 of them ended up in touchdowns. So does he dare to air it out against the Texans? He might. He has had success against them before. We'll see if he can find it again. But he's known for more of those short, intermediate passes, not exactly some of the deep ball threats with the Steelers this season.
Yep, we'll see how it all plays out on Monday night, 8:15 Eastern on ESPN and ABC. Jane Slater will be there on hand for us here at NFL Network. Thank you, Jane. Bryce Young and the Panthers, they'll get Wildcard weekend started. That's coming up on Saturday. We're going to take another look at that game and the other ones coming up on the Insiders.
Wildcard weekend, absolutely jam-packed. All starts out tomorrow. Triple header on Sunday. Steelers, Texans wrapping things up on Monday night. For the Carolina Panthers, they already beat the Rams once this season. Now can Bryce Young do it again in his playoff debut? Here's what Dave Canellis had to say about his quarterback.
Bryce is really consistent in terms of his prep, our normal conversations throughout the week, checking with Brad, checking with Will, checking with myself, making sure we're all on the same page for the purpose of the things. And, he goes out there to practice and he just continues to lead the group and make sure that we get to the right play. And his demeanor stays pretty even, and which is why he's performed really well for us in critical situations, and end of game type of situations and fourth downs, those types of things. It's just his makeup, and he's played in big games before, and he played at Alabama. That's every game there, every home game there is a high pressure game, the expectation to win and all those things. So I believe he's just a guy who's prepared for this emotionally, and he's had a great week.
To Saturday night we go. Familiar foes, just not in the postseason. The third ever playoff matchup between the Packers and the Bears. Two fantastic games in the regular season. We can only hope that this one will live up to that as well. 8 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video. Christian Watson and Josh Jacobs talking to us about playing in Chicago.
No, I definitely wanted to play the Bears. If I had my pick, for any team, it would have definitely been the Bears. I want my get back for sure. We get a chance to put the Bears season to bed. That means a lot to us for sure.
A lot of the guys took that hit that he took a little personal, So I'm not saying we're gonna go out there and play dirty or nothing like that, but we definitely gonna defend our brothers.
Sunday on CBS, it is the Jaguars and the Bills in the early window. We know Jacksonville's D's been doing it all season. That offense keeps heating up.
You don't put yourself there at all. I have not put myself there at all, personally, you just keep trying to do what you've been doing to the best of your ability and then let the results be what they may and go play your asses off on Sunday and for 60 minutes and see what the heck happens. So it's just the way that this game works, the way that you have to stay so singularly focused on your job, your execution, your responsibilities, your details, the game plan, knowing your opponent to the best of your ability, and then go play. Because you let anything else get into your mind, it just starts to cloud it, and you start to think about things that really don't matter.
Sunday afternoon, a game I'll be covering. The playoffs return to South Philadelphia. The Eagles against the 49ers. They beat them in the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago when the 49ers ran out of quarterbacks. This 49ers team, that's the one position they are healthy at right now. Banged up a lot of places elsewhere. The Eagles getting some bodies back. Maybe Lane Johnson. But don't just assume the Eagles are going to win, because Jalen Hurts, who told us in training camp it's a new year, is telling us it's a new year.
Every year is different, but it's always the same goal. And, if you don't have that mentality, then, you're not in the right place, ultimately. And so I know that's something that he's adamant on, and I feel very strongly about that as well. It's just coming in, treating every year as his own year, but also knowing exactly what we're playing for. And that's the collective of winning and putting ourselves in positions to play for championships.
Why do you think it is in your career you've played better or you've elevated your performance in these high-stakes games?
Some things are in you.
MVP voting is over, but Drake May's got a chance to make another statement Sunday night on NBC and Peacock. His playoff debut against the Chargers. Also, Mike Vrabel's initial foray into the postseason as New England's head coach.
Need everybody at their best at Sunday at 8:15. Like that's what the challenge is to prepare and then obviously enjoy, continue to enjoy what we do and in preparation and the execution. But everybody just has to be, a little bit better in the details and focused on things in their job. But no.
Mike Vrabel was the first head coach hired last year. Could another fired coach be the first one hired this year? We got the latest on Kevin Stefanski and Mike McDaniel on the interview circuit next on The Insiders. The Dolphins just made it officially official. They have agreed to terms with John Eric Sullivan, the longtime Packers executive, as their new general manager. Now Miami turns the attention to finding their next head coach. That search going to ramp up here in the coming days. Kevin Stefanski's tours on the interview circuit already underway, interviewing today with the Baltimore Ravens, one of several teams that have requested interviews with Stefanski. Mike McDaniel, fired yesterday by the Dolphins, already going to be back out on the circuit. I'm told he'll interview for the Titans head coaching job next Wednesday. At least one other team also has head coaching interest in McDaniel. Brian Callahan fired back in October by the Titans. He's got a virtual interview complete with the Bucs for their offensive coordinator job. A really intriguing fit right there. Meanwhile, for those 14 teams lucky enough to be in the postseason, 12 of them will be on the field this weekend. Mike Garafolo, you've seen this graphic 25 times this week. What are you most looking forward to on Wildcard weekend?
You know, it took me a couple of days to get over the fact that there's no Mahomes, there's no Lamar, there's no Burrow in the postseason. But you know what? You're going to see some of these young guns. You're going to see Caleb and Drake May. I'm looking forward to seeing these guys this weekend. Bo Nix yet to come. He's played in the postseason before, but not as the number 1 seed. So I'm looking forward to seeing these young quarterbacks. Who's going to wilt under the pressure? Who's going to stand up? I got a feeling these two are going to play well this weekend.
There are a lot of quarterback debuts in this postseason, which certainly adds a fun layer to everything here. You heard Dave Canales talking about Bryce Young. The game that nobody thinks will be competitive, even though the team that everyone thinks is going to get killed won this matchup like a month ago. Everyone's forgotten about it. I expect some fireworks in that early window on Saturday. Enjoy the games, everybody. We are back on the Insiders on Monday, NFL Game Day morning tomorrow. See ya.